Westbrook Health Services has been supporting the surrounding community since 1949 and is known as an agency that is community-focused, people-driven. As one of West Virginia's 13 comprehensive behavioral health centers, Westbrook provides services to 8 counties throughout the Mountaineer State and became one of the first comprehensive community behavioral health clinics in West Virginia in 2020. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the generous help of the Sisters Health Foundation. This year marks 25 years since the foundation awarded its first grant, and we couldn't be more grateful for their support. Welcome to Studio 2121.
Hello, and welcome to Studio 2121 podcast. I am the host, Kevin Trippett, and with me I have Nathan Suttle, who works in our Department of Justice grant, and we'll talk a little bit about that grant, and Kristen Default-Jules, who is a program director in our prevention program. And today we want to talk a little bit about teenage violence, particularly bullying and harassment that may happen online or through teenage dating, and a lot of those sorts of issues that come up from time to time, especially around this time of the year. So to get into it a little bit, I want to start with Nathan. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. And we received a grant from the Department of Justice to help address bullying in the schools. And do you want to talk a little bit about what you do and how that grant works?
Yeah, I go into the schools and I teach curriculum on violence prevention and anti-bullying. I've picked up a few other things like youth mental health first aid, which I will start implementing, and that can be taught to anybody. I've got the Weird series. It's a series of books based on it's got the target, the bystander, and the person who bullies. I've got Too Good for Violence, which specifies violence and different social emotional learning.
Awesome. So you go in and speak with children. Mm-hmm. What kind of response do you get from the children with some of your conversations?
They like it a lot, yeah. They seem to be really receptive to that.
Have any of them started bringing issues to you that they have?
I've had a few. A couple that we've addressed and had to push it to a counselor, but we've had it taken care of.
Okay. Back when I was in school, you didn't have cyberbullying.
Right.
That's a whole new round. You just had people that come up and told you what they wanted you to do and threaten you and stuff like that. So what kind of things are children dealing with when it comes to cyberbullying?
It's constant. It's texting from unknown numbers using different texting apps. It's just a barrage of just harassment through different social media apps, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, like I said, different texting apps. So you never quite know exactly where it's coming from, who it's going to. It's just a lot of just bullying.
Do you think the ability to do it through the social media platforms actually has increased bullying among children compared to what we dealt with?
Absolutely, because that's something that can go on 24/7. It's not, you don't have to be present, you don't have to be at the school for it to physically happen. That can follow that child home. So that can happen anytime, anywhere.
Is there things school systems are trying to do to help limit that?
So actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I've been looking into anonymous reporting systems, and what the state of West Virginia has an anonymous reporting system that all schools, anybody can access, parents, students, teachers. And if they start experiencing things like that, if they experience a threat or they see something in school that is concerning, they're able to contact that number, and then there's somebody there 24/7 that's able to look into that.
Okay, nice. So Kristen, do you want to talk about a little bit? You've been recently promoted to a program director. Before that, you were in our prevention program. And so do you want to talk a little bit about your role with the agency?
Sure. So I started out at Westbrook with the expanded school mental health case management job at PHS in Hamilton. So I kind of got my feet wet out of college from there in the case management world. I really enjoyed it, and I, like you said, was recently promoted to the Regional Youth Services Program Director position. I was looking at things from more of a systematic perspective while I was in that case management role, and I was like constantly going to my supervisor, Nancy, being like, oh, this would be great if we just fixed this, or, this would be so much easier if X, Y, and Z happened. And so with being a division director, there was a time crunch, and so this position has really helped to facilitate all of our regional youth services grants. So whether that's, the expanded school mental health positions, which we have several now, it's ever growing. Our first episode psychosis person, our family coordinators, our suicide interventionists, it's helping kind of coordinate all of that together. And so with the expanded school mental health case management side, that's one of our really only client-facing, direct contact, intakes, case management, supportive counseling, all of that. So we get to see a lot of the nitty-gritty that a lot of therapists will also see. So that has kind of helped us find stuff in prevention to apply things to. So we'll get a lot of, kind of case studies, if you will, out of, how can we apply the bullying concepts that Nathan is bringing in and kind of, applying this to what can we put into these schools to help these specific students that we know is here, or counselors coming to us requesting things all the time, what programming do you have for, all of these things, all of these issues, because they're just so overwhelmed.
Sure. So what is some advice that we might be able to give children who are experiencing bullying? How do they build up a wall towards it? How do they report it? That sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. So I know that I will jump in first with just if you see something, say something. Mm-hmm. I think that, and that's a big initiative from one of Nathan's programs that he's looking into right now, but we, and I say we as generally, we as parents, we as caring adults, we can't fix a problem that we don't know is there. So if the problem is only in Snapchat, we're not on your Snapchat or things disappear. We can't know something that is there unless you share it with us. And fostering that supportive relationship with your, student, with your client, with whoever it is, I can't help anything that I don't know isn't there. So definitely just building up the trust to share something. And then also, if something's brought to you, don't just let it fall through the cracks, because that breaks that trust, I would say. And then Nathan, I'll let you get into the logistics of. And
if a child comes to you and listen to them non-judgmentally, listen to what they have to say. Don't judge them for what they're bringing to you, because the best part of that is keeping an open line of communication and not judging them, because you don't know what's happening for a situation to occur.
Yeah, I can imagine. I know raising my own children, as soon as you judge them, a lot of times that shuts them down. Mm-hmm. They won't come back to you again. So yeah, you do have to express understanding, even if you think they're crazy. Mm-hmm. They may not be, for one. Mm-hmm. They just may have problems expressing themselves. Right. Mm-hmm. And for two, you want to know that you value what they have to say to you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So with cyberbullying, I know that, like Snapchat, you said you can screenshot it before it disappears, so you can have some evidence that way. But there's this new app out called WhatsApp. I've never used it, but I heard that everything immediately disappears. So if someone's being bullied through that app, is there any way for them to prove it?
Not really. I mean, it's just the same as just trying to screenshot it before it goes away. I mean, it will retain a lot of those conversations. Okay. But once that app is deleted, then unless you've been backing up that history, it's not going to be saved.
It's not going to be saved. Yeah. So would you advise a kid who's being bullied to try to block the person versus engaging in conversation, or I mean, what should they do?
I think in that situation, the best thing to do would be block them, and then definitely go to a trusted adult. Go to a parent or guardian, a counselor. Go to somebody. Let them know, like Kristen said, if nobody knows that it's happening, it can't be fixed.
And it's not always cut and dry. So a lot of these situations that we run into with students, they're not black and white as much as we would like them to be. So as much as we would like to be able to give a prescription for, oh yeah, just block them and, blah, 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 we'll do this, this, and this, and it's cured and it's fixed. But sometimes the issue is, with the bully and not the target. There's always two sides to every story. Not saying that, a target, is asking for it or anything like that, but there's a reason that students bully, and that's kind of what the Weird series gets into, because it gives multiple sides to, so you start out with the target, and then the next book is
The bystander.
The bystander, so the witness, what we can do, and ways that we can help. And then it ends with, I believe, the target, where it talks about why the
bully.
With the bully, sorry, I'm learning the weird series, but it goes into the backstory of where this behavior is coming from, because one of the biggest things is all behavior is meaningful. So we're not only meeting the target's needs, but we're going to try to meet the bully's needs.
So the Weird series, is that an evidence-based curriculum specifically for bullying?
It is not evidence-based,
Not evidence-based,
but
okay.
it is a curriculum specifically for bullying.
Okay.
It's just 3 books. It comes with activities that you do after the story, and a lot of them, they're actually really impactful once you sit down and do them.
Okay.
Especially with the littles, they really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
what age group is that one targeted?
that one goes to 5 to 9. I've used it clear up into 5th grade, and they've taken just as much out of it as the littles have.
Okay.
Sure, you read it to our office. And
Yeah.
we were all just absolutely enthralled. We were like, what's going to happen next? So we test a lot of our materials on our coworkers about, like, hey, if you were a kid, how would you like
Right.
this, or what would you think that this was weird, or that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So, and I'm not saying people are asking for it, that's not what I intend to imply, but when kids, they want to share what's going on in their lives, they do selfies, they post all over Facebook, by posting a lot on social media, do they open themselves up to people that might target them and make comments negatively towards their posts and that sort of thing?
I think we're at a time now where that's just what life is.
That's just culture.
That's just
nature.
culture,
Okay.
yeah. But I think in the same sense of that, as you're saying, that does also leave that door open. So that is a correlation that has been seen between the amount of posting versus.
I mean, all of us should have the right to expect that we can post something in there and someone not hammer us for it. But
Absolutely.
unfortunately, it happens.
Yeah.
And we want to identify when it does so that we can get the kids the help that they need, because we know individuals who are being bullied oftentimes can put themselves in a dark hole and recluse themselves from school, and their grades come down, and maybe start with depressive issues. So as a parent, what are some signs and symptoms that I should be looking for if I have a child that potentially is being bullied?
Yeah.
Definitely a child that's withdrawn. Anytime they withdraw, anytime they snap, if they withdraw, if they snap back in anger, if they lose interest in their normal everyday activities, just things like that.
Not wanting to go to school, not
Right.
wanting to do extracurriculars that they might have loved before, noticing a significant drop in, from their baseline of, like, self-esteem. It can look like a lot of things. Just the way that we say that depression and anxiety look different for everybody, experiencing that, because it is oftentimes a trauma response, because these are traumatic experiences for these students. So it really can look different for everybody. But any deviation from baseline, no matter what it is, whether it's bullying, mental health issues, any of that, it all looks different for the individual. But yeah, anything that is different than usual, change in routine, lots of stuff like that.
So if I recognize some of these signs in a child, what action should I be taking?
I would definitely sit down and have a conversation with them. Open that line of communication. Listen non-judgmentally to what they have to say. Just going back. Just talking to them.
Okay.
Definitely keeping that line of communication open.
And I discover that they are being bullied. My tendency might be to try to look up the offender's parent and have a conversation with them. But what would be an appropriate response? In addition to being supportive to my child, what other steps should I be taking?
Yeah, so before we get into a Facebook war or anything like that, sliding into somebody's DMs being like, your kid told my kid blah, blah, blah. I think bringing it to the school, like Nathan said, having an open conversation, not only with your student or your kid, but, bringing in the teachers that might have seen something, letting the principals know, because principals I have, in my experience with, the ESMH, expanded school mental health case management stuff, principals really like to nip it in the bud with bullying. I know that a lot of our schools have a very low tolerance for bullying, and I know that one school in particular experienced where they were on, one of the gossip sites on Facebook, which we all, love and enjoy a lot, unfortunately, but there were accusations of bullying on one of the gossip pages on Facebook, and the principal was in the comments being like, come to me instead. So I think bypassing social media and going directly to the person who can fix it, the person who can hopefully fix it or address it in an appropriate and disciplinary way, or even if that's linking that student with services, because again, the schools can't fix something that they don't know is going on. So it's bringing the people to the table that need to be there. So maybe PRO officer, if there's, threats, against other students, the counselors, the principal, vice principal, school nurses, sometimes they see a lot of stuff whenever, whenever the littles get the tummy aches all the time, stuff like that.
Even bus drivers.
Yes, bus drivers see a lot. They can pull cameras a lot. And that's the beauty of, today is we have cameras everywhere. So they can pull footage and see a lot of the things that, we can't see, or we just have to kind of, assume that they're telling the truth. But those cameras can really help. That's a good.
And another staff member that people tend to really forget about are the custodians.
Yes, and cafeteria
everything.
workers, they hear and see everything, and people don't think about it at all.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's interesting you bring up custodians, because when my wife and I were active in boosters in middle school, and selling candy and stuff at basketball games, the custodian became our best friend. So they definitely are involved with the kids and are out there to help as well. So
they're almost equally involved with the school as far as even as far as teachers, because they are constantly in the school somewhere.
Yeah. So I report to the school, and the bullying part is being addressed, but is there other things I should be concerned about and additional resources I might need to put in play with a child that has been bullied?
So this is where I get to do my expanded school mental health pitch. So I would recommend, even if it's not with Westbrook, just whatever, mental health, facility or place that is appropriate for you and your family, linking them to an outlet, even if it's just a couple of therapy sessions to process what's kind of going on and, come up with those coping skills, and then practicing those coping skills with your, with your kid or with your student, because if we don't practice it outside of therapy, it's really not going to do a whole lot of good. That 1 hour is really helpful, but, really putting those things into play and being really close with the therapist and, figuring out what your student is working on. And then, of course, with expanded school mental health, if your student went to Parkersburg High School, for example, which I believe he does. So if he was having mental health, concerns, if we're ignoring conflict of interest and all that, because, I'm seeing Kevin Trippett's son in supportive counseling, blah, 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 that wouldn't be cool. But if we, hypothetically, got your son an intake assessment, everything could be done in-house at PHS, seeing a therapist on site, doesn't even have to leave the school to go, take the time to drive to 7th Street office or anything like that. Supportive counseling is an option for a lot of kids. We do check-ins sometimes just for those students who aren't quite to that level, where they need, therapy every single week, but we do supportives where we practice what the therapist is working on. Or sometimes we don't even need, those students don't even need a therapist per se, but maybe just a group for support. So an evidence-based group, or even just a general lunch bunch group where kids can come in and practice those coping skills in a safe environment where they have something in common with other students. So students who have been identified to have been, targets of bullies, where they can get together and kind of, build each other up again. That can be a really solid way to build back that self-esteem, keep them engaged at school. So those groups that are done at school can help keep those kids in school. I know that we use ripple effects in a lot of schools. That program, has been shown by research to increase retention and improve attendance. So using stuff like that strategically can really help. So there's a whole collection of things that are available. I think a lot of it is getting the message out there that, there are resources and kind of linking with those community partners.
It's something we ask our son all the time is try to ask about his friends, who are you hanging out with, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If a child truly is not hanging out with anybody or does not have any friends, is that a red flag?
I would say, I would think that, and this is just purely my personal opinion, I would say a lot of people, even if they're kind of the loner in school, they usually have at least one close friend. Would you say that that's true? So even kind of the outcast kids or the kids that are kind of on the fringe of, that social culture in schools, most kids have one close friend or at least a safe person that they can kind of float around the school with. So if they are completely isolating, I would say that that was a red flag, and especially if that's not their baseline. If they had a really good friend group last year and then this year, halfway through the year, you've noticed they're not hanging out with their friends anymore, they don't text their friends anymore, they're not doing anything, I would be concerned as a parent.
Yeah, I asked because you mentioned building up support groups and supports, and kids have a tendency to not tell you everything, adults everything. They will their friends.
Yeah.
So if they have no one to talk to, I could see that as potentially being a problem for them to trying to cope with whatever issues they're dealing with. Yeah. What kind of you mentioned weird series. Weird series. That's what you're using in elementary schools.
I use it in elementary schools. I use it out in the community.
Okay.
Anywhere that.
What about middle school age kids?
Middle schools, that's pushing a little bit.
Okay. Do we have a different curriculum that we've identified for?
Yeah, I'll use Too Good for Violence. I can take it up into high school, so it'll go K through 12. I've taken it to 2 different middle schools, and they seem to be really receptive with it.
So how does the Too Good for Violence curriculum work?
So the first 5 lessons are just basic information on social emotional learning. The last 5 are building on anger management, anxiety, how to handle a bully, how to be able to cope during that time. We're just building up new coping skills.
Are you getting good responses with children using that curriculum
Absolutely.
as well? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is it pretty straightforward? It's easy for them to get involved with the materials?
Yeah. It comes with like board games and different activities that they do. So they get a chance to work together on different parts of the curriculum. So it also builds up morale.
Nice. Okay. You guys have anything else you want to share about bullying? Before I got a couple personal questions.
No, Nathan, you're our bullying expert.
Nothing that I can think of right now.
You mentioned before we started the podcast that you have some questions that you usually run through with either a parent or a community member, just trying to do some fact finding. Do we want to go through that exercise?
Sure.
Okay.
So what we do, we've done a lot of teen dating violence prevention, just not evidence-based, just really something that we threw together until we can find something. But we put together a presentation for students, and we've presented to Children's Home Society, we've presented at Teen Issues Days, and there's an exercise that the students are really, really receptive to, and we had a whole lot of fun with it. But Nathan, do you have a specific movie or show in mind?
I don't know, do you want to start with a good one, or?
We won't say. It can be whatever. It can be. Let's see. Kevin, have you seen The Notebook?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
It's been a long time, but I've seen it.
So, Allie and Noah, the 2 main characters. All right. So usually this is where we have a big old picture of the dramatic, movie scene, of course. But would you say that Allie and Noah have a healthy or an unhealthy relationship?
It's a good question.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, the movie kind of portrays them as being really good partners and really good for each other. I almost would differ to say that it's probably a bad relationship, that they were too dependent upon each other and didn't have their own autonomy.
Yeah. So if we had to have a yes or no, are we going healthy or unhealthy?
I'm going unhealthy.
Okay.
So how about the Twilight series?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at Edward and Bella.
Okay. Unhealthy or healthy?
Yep.
To me, that's also an unhealthy relationship.
Okay.
And I say that because she completely changed her identity to conform to his.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, have you seen the movie Up? The Disney movie.
That's the Disney cartoon?
Mm-hmm.
The house that goes up?
Yes.
Okay, yes. I did watch it. I don't know how well I remember it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you happen to remember Carl and Ellie, the characters at the very beginning?
No.
Okay.
No, that was not a good one for me.
Let's see.
I don't
What
remember.
about... See, this is the other thing that we've run into with teenagers is a lot of... We didn't realize how old we are. Old. Because you get in a room with teenagers and you're like, oh, have you ever seen these movies? And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, no. I'm not cool anymore.
How about
Frozen?
Yes.
Frozen.
Oh, okay.
So... I always want to say Hans. Kristoff.
You technically could do both.
Either way, but we usually go with Kristoff and Anna. Healthy or
Kristoff and
unhealthy?
That's a good one. Of the ones we've had so far, that one might be more healthier than the other ones. Yes.
Yep. Okay. So you passed.
All right.
So good job. We get some very heated debates in these, in rooms full of, people that I would never expect, of teenagers I would never expect in a million years to have a heated debate about the Twilight series.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, just, people walk in and they just throw their stuff down and they're just like, oh, this is stupid, I don't want to be here. And then by the time we, get into this, like by the third slide, they are like, well, I just think that Edward, blah, 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 and they're just really into it.
Well, what about Jacob? Jacob's in there too.
Yeah.
So, definitely in the Notebook, unhealthy.
Yeah.
We'd like to think that in movies we would see healthy relationships, but really what we found is it was really difficult to think of examples of healthy relationships. Even
in the most likely of places that to find them, it was not.
There was a lot of red flags sometimes.
Yeah.
But with Allie and Noah, she hits him repeatedly in the movie, even though that might not physically hurt him, mentally and emotionally, still hurts just as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are, like you said, completely, dependent on each other. It's like an obsessive thing. With Edward and Bella in Twilight, he watches her sleep and she doesn't know about it. Like that's just a no. That's stalking. That's not goals.
Yeah.
So there's a list that goes on for a mile long. Anna and Kristoff, they were one of the closest that we could find to a healthy relationship, even though they had a rocky start in the movie. But by movie 2, we really, I don't know if you saw the second one, but by the second one, well, 10 out of 10. Yeah. By the second one, you really see them, kind of coming into their relationship and like giving each other space. And Kristoff is very, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I support you?
It's an actual give and take.
Yes,
Yep.
Yes. Instead of just like, oh, I love you and we're going to get married and that's the end. So that's kind of the way that we have worked to engage students in a fun game before we have these serious conversations about, the different forms of teen dating violence and, talking about consent and, stalking and stuff like that and aspects of grooming that, these are really heavy conversations to be having with, freshmen through seniors. These are really tough conversations, but students really love the cultural aspect of it, and we wouldn't watch these movies if they weren't filled with drama.
Right.
Like Twilight would have been real boring if they'd have been like, nice to meet you, and then they just left.
Right.
So but yeah, it's a great way for us to engage with.
Yeah, those are great icebreakers for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that we noticed with that in a lot of those movies, they all took time for each other. They all took time to get to know each other. They all became friends first before they moved into a relationship. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up, is that all of them took their time.
Which we don't see that in today's world, do we?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Social media and texting and, relationships that have only happened over text through the summer, and then they get to school and it's like, oh.
And you already love each other.
Oh, yeah, for
Edward
sure.
Bella,
Things move very fast.
The Notebook, all of them have done that, so.
Yeah, everything moves very, very fast. And that's actually one of the warning signs that we share with them is if your relationship feels like it's, going a mile a minute and you're like, whoa, 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 how did I get here, to this point yet? I need to pump the brakes. That can be a red flag, that, maybe your relationship isn't the healthiest, or maybe you're being, love bombed, where it's like trying to make up for, unhealthy behavior. and then it's like, I'm just trying to make it up to you, that kind of thing. So yeah, things move very, very fast, especially today. We're very want it now, get it done type people, and that applies to relationships too, unfortunately.
Right. So great conversation. I hopefully those listening to this will get something out of it and know that we're here to help in any way we can. But I am curious from each of you. I'll start with Nathan first. You want to talk a little bit about why you work at Westbrook and maybe if you like working here? I don't want to force you to say yes, I love it. So.
No, I do like working here. It gives me an opportunity to work with youth, which I do enjoy working with youth, and it gives me an opportunity to teach them lessons that they can take with them through their life. Especially with bullying and violence right now, where we're in a time where things are a little rocky. So I like to try and be that person that can bring them some sort of hope and a guiding lesson into their life. So it's nice to help them with as best as I can.
That's awesome. How about you, Kristen?
Oh gosh, I love the creativity that I get to have. That's something that I've told my supervisor recently, with my new position. I love the creativity. I love the problem solving, because I'll be darned if there aren't, problems that need to be solved, whether it's, internally, externally, both, even if it's just something as simple as, I don't know how to do this thing in our record keeping stuff. I love being the person that people can come to and ask for help. The creativity for sure, and I've gotten to do a little bit of everything. So I got to kind of dip into the therapy world when I first got here. I got to dip into case management. Now I'm a supervisor where I'm the person that people come to for help, and it's exciting knowing the different possibilities that I have here.
That's awesome. Well, thank you two very much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. If you enjoyed the episode, please give us a like, subscribe to get our newest updates when possible. And if you are in a crisis, you may use our crisis line at any time, 304-485-1725. Also, you may call 988. Thank you.